How about now? Can everyone hear me? Good. All right, I apologize for starting late this morning. We're a little bit behind. There was a little bit of conflict with Special Olympics, and we were not aware of that. So I think we've accommodated it, and I think we've given everyone enough time to get parked and get in here. There's a couple of people still coming in, but we've got plenty of seats. So I'm going to go ahead and get rolling because I want to be respectful of y'all's time. I appreciate everyone coming out. I'm going to read off of a script as I do the presentation. The purpose of that is to make sure that the information I'm providing today is the same information we provided on Tuesday. This is going to be an exact mirror replica of the meeting we held on Tuesday. I'm also going to take some time before we move to question and answers to touch on some of the questions that were asked on Tuesday. Just a couple, because we had a couple of main themes, and I just want to go ahead and hit on those two things before we open up the mic to ask questions. So we're going to have a presentation with Q&A, but I'm going to go ahead and read my script now. Thank you for attending. I'm Jared Miller, City Manager for the City of San Marcos. Conversations and open communication with the community are of utmost importance to us, and we're very pleased to have this opportunity to talk with you tonight, this morning. So yeah, I'm reading exactly the script that I used on Tuesday night. We're planning a number of opportunities to collaborate in the future as we plan and implement flood recovery and resiliency projects and activities. Please share any information that you receive at this meeting with your friends and neighbors, because I know we don't have everyone here, and one of our main objectives is to communicate and answer as many questions as possible with as many affected residents as possible. Also, this meeting is being streamed live on our website, and there's an opportunity for our online viewers, as well as those here with us, to ask questions during the Q&A session. I understand there's concerns that this meeting is taking place at the same time as other things that everyone wants to be at or that are conflicting with our ability to get in here right now. But we want to make sure that everyone, like I said, everyone has an opportunity. I know there was concerns that we had conflict on Tuesday night. We had a very high interest planning and zoning meeting at the same time that we had the Tuesday night meeting. It's important that we go ahead and have these meetings and start this process so that we can get into the project and get into whatever projects we identified through this process. We didn't want to wait. That's why we're having two identical meetings to be able to compensate for that. And that's also why we're going to try and reiterate some of the questions that were asked on Tuesday night. Before I begin, I'd like to recognize the council members who have joined us this morning. I know I've seen Jane Hewson and Scott Gregson is here. John Tomides is on his way. Am I missing anybody? All right. Also with us participating in the meeting are the following staff members. We've got Ken Bell, our Emergency Management Coordinator, over here. We've got Richard Reynosa is here somewhere. We've also got Lori Moyer, our Director of CIP and Engineering. Richard's our floodplain administrator. We've got Colette Jameson, Assistant City Manager. Janice Hendricks, our Community Initiatives Administrator. Janice is in the very back. She's also known as our expert in CDBG. Several of our staff members are also available to chat with you after the meeting. Can everyone raise your hands if you're staff? We've got a lot of staff members. We're also going to have some tables. We've labeled different locations around the room where you're going to be able to go after we finish the question and answer to have some more intimate conversations and be able to ask more detailed questions, get some more detailed responses to your questions. So we're going to be able to assist you after the meeting as well. We're just going to stick around as long as it takes to answer the questions you have today. We also have a representative from the Blanco River Regional Recovery Team, otherwise known as the BR3T.
That's me, Harrison.
Harrison, all right. Well, I'll be calling Harrison up in just a little bit also to provide some additional information about the BR3T. So today's focus is on flood recovery. And the primary topic of discussion will be the CDBG Disaster Recovery Grant that we received. We're going to discuss a brief summary of recovery efforts to date. Actually, I'm jumping ahead of myself. We're going to discuss a brief summary of recovery efforts to date since the 2015 floods. We're going to take a closer look at the CDBG-DR. I'm going to say a bunch of acronyms. I'm going to make sure and say them out and explain what they mean once, or at least once. If anybody doesn't know one of the acronyms I say, please raise your hands and I'll say it, because I want to make sure everyone understands. I don't want to hit you with an alphabet soup. We're going to take a closer look at the CDBG-DR grant, its objectives, and how the grant funds can be used. What you can do until a permanent flood management or flood mitigation project is complete. We want to talk about things that you can do until a project has been implemented. We're going to talk about unmet needs and the BR3T's work with flood recovery. We're going to seek feedback with you through an interactive poll. Each one of your households should have received a little clicker. So we're going to use that to do an interactive poll. We also have idea cards out there in the lobby, right next to a old-fashioned polling box. So you're going to fill out the idea card. If you have an idea that can help us solicit more information, or with projects or anything else that you want to provide us that you might not want to tell us in person, you can fill out that idea card, put it in the box, and we want that information. Lastly, like I said, we've got tables set up with staff for one-on-one conversations after the presentation is over. Also want to make everyone aware that there is assistance available for those who do not speak English as their primary language. So if there's anybody with any type of language need, we can address that as well. All right, so what's been done? It's been nearly a year since Memorial Day weekend flood and 6 months since the All Saints Day floods. In the immediate aftermath of both of those events, you heard a lot from the city. We gathered for a town hall meeting like this one, neighborhood meetings. We disseminated a lot of information through the news media, flyers, social media, and other communication outlets. A lot happens during the response phase of a disaster. It's fast-paced, and there's a host of time-sensitive and crucial communications. On that, and just as an example, you can see during the immediate response, there's notification communications, search and rescue, evacuation center that was set up, donation center that was set up, volunteer resources center that was set up. We provided assessments through our engineering department, going house to house on foot. We also coordinated with federal, state agencies, and lawmakers during the immediate response phase. Not every solution for prevention and recovery is feasible. We just don't have, once the response phase is over, then recovery begins. The city and our residents begin to assess the damage, make repairs, and look for solutions. Current activities include the BR3T, working on long-term recovery, unmet needs of citizens, ongoing infrastructure repairs. That's our water lines, streets, drainage infrastructure that was damaged, and any other city parks and other property and facilities that were damaged during floods. Permitting and floodplain compliance, continued information gathering and reporting, and then again, federal and state advocacy. During the last 3 months, we've made a couple of different trips to Washington, D.C. With good results. Not every solution for prevention and recovery is feasible. We just don't have the funds to address every unmet need or implement all of the mitigation and flood management projects that we'd like to do. That's why we've been working to secure grant funding for flood recovery. Ken Bell, our emergency management coordinator, has been instrumental in helping us find and apply for federal and state grants. I'd like to invite Ken up right now to give us a rundown of the grants we've applied for and their status.
No, it's on mine. You're plugged in. Good morning. So far, and it's hard to tell, I hate the podium, so I'm going to step outside of it. It's hard to tell, but the top three are in a green color. Those are applications that have been applied for and received in some form. So your individual assistance money that has been issued out, and the HUD CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant, disaster recovery grants. All the grants at the bottom, TWA or TWDA, Texas Watershed Grants, Environmental Watershed Protection, and some of the others are ongoing. In fact, we have one that's due at the end of this month, another one due at the end of June. These are going to be for specific projects. Some of them have been identified, some not, but we just have deadline dates we have to meet. These grants become available after a disaster, so they're just not sitting there until Congress authorizes them. We were lucky that some authorizations happened right in the middle of last year as these events were going on. So these monies are sitting there and available for us, and so we're working towards trying to get as much of that as we can. One in particular is a NRCS, National Resource Conservation Service grant, to help clean all the debris out of the river. I'm sure everybody, we go through this every time. If you recall, after the 2002 rains, we were working towards that. I will point out some of the significance of this. We've cleaned the river debris and some of the pathways from the bridge here to Highway 80. Cost about $1 million to do that. So it's big dollars to make this stuff happen from the standpoint of having to meet all of the environmental, historical preservation rules and get permissions from all the property owners, because everybody owns a piece of that as we move down. And they worked real well last time. That was in the mid-2000s, so here we go again. So So it's going to take us about a year, almost 2 years, to secure that money and get this work done. We've been working out of multiple offices here in Texas and DC to get those dollars. I do believe they're available. We are also having to repair 5 flood dams. They weren't damaged to the fact that it's a crisis mode, but the overflows were damaged in the last flood. We were watching the rocks actually come off the edges. We're in pretty good shape from the standpoint of the dams. If something happens, for example, tomorrow or the next day, which I'm not too worried about the initial watershed here, but so the dams are sound, there's nothing wrong with them, but we have to get the water control, the watershed protection piece repaired, and we're doing that now.
And you can see on the right side of the screen, all of those agencies, FEMA, HUD, Texas Water Development Board, NRCS, and a couple of others are all going to be part of any solutions that we implement as well. So they're not just providing funding, they'll also be providing ongoing assistance. Ken mentioned the CDBG-DR grant, Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Grant. First, let's talk about what this grant really is. It's part of an omnibus bill that was originally proposed to address disaster recovery in South Carolina. Thanks to leaders in Washington, D.C., who were made aware of the grant during our disaster recovery trip to meet with our federal congressional delegation. There, we were able to share the need for funds in Texas, and specifically here in San Marcos. We do at this point, and you generally don't want to talk too much about politics, but all of our representatives who represent this area were incredibly helpful and instrumental in making this additional funding happen. We also want to specifically call out Secretary Julian Castro with Housing and Urban Development, who took personal interest in the city of San Marcos, and I have every confidence was instrumental in helping us receive this funding, which is going to be necessary for us to make any meaningful steps to address flooding and make our community more resilient. Once the bill was passed and HUD was able to assess the available funding and the most pressing needs, the state of Texas was allocated $51 million. The city of Houston and Harris County received $67 million, and the city of San Marcos received $25 million. We don't have it yet, but we've been awarded $25 million. Now, timeline, as I said, we haven't received it yet. The city's not received the funds. Once we do, there's still a very lengthy process before projects can be fully executed. I want to take a quick look at the anticipated timeline. So as soon as the next step is the Federal Register. The Federal Register is a very detailed legal document, federal document, that's going to, one, make formal notice of our award, but also provide any additional details and requirements with regard to how we spend it and execute those funds. After that, we'll provide needs assessments, continue to seek public input, work on an action plan. The action plan is going to be due 90 days after the Federal Register is issued, so we have a clock that's going to start ticking. We're going to seek HUD approval of the action plan, and then it will take however long it's going to take to implement whatever solutions are identified in the action plan through significant public input and work with the council, staff, and the community. I don't say that to say there's not going to be a solution for years and years and years. I'm just telling you that we don't know what the projects are going to be, and until we do that, and until we know that, we won't know how long it's going to take before we get a solution implemented, or at least get something implemented to make things better. Also, and of interest, I think, there is not a deadline for spending of the funds that we've received from HUD. That doesn't mean we want to delay at all. We want to move as quickly as possible, but we won't lose the funds if we haven't identified a project in a very quick manner. How can the funds be used? City staff and council met with HUD officials in Washington, D.C., Housing and Urban Development officials in Washington, D.C., and we have had a number of conversations with HUD staff at the national and regional offices. The one statement that was highlighted in every conversation was the requirement to use these funds for community resiliency projects. Projects and programs that repair damage and prevent repeated damage in the future. This list is taken directly from the HUD-DR material provided to the city. It's important to note that there may be additional requirements listed in the Federal Register once it's issued. So our requirements are not complete until we receive the Federal Register and any additional guidance that it wants to put out. What can we do? Examples of eligible activities. So what does a flood resiliency project look like? This slide shows some of the types of projects other communities have completed using CDBG-DR grant funds. It's also worth noting that HUD officials mentioned leveraging the CDBG-DR grant fund to pay matching contributions on other federal disaster recovery projects. So we can potentially leverage these funds with other funding opportunities to make $25 million function more like a bigger number. And I don't, until we know, again, what project that is or what opportunities there are for leveraging, we won't know what the size of those projects might be. Projects that were done in other communities included raising homes, home rehab projects, buyout programs, public housing, shelter, workforce center, preparedness solutions. In the meantime, we're very grateful for the grant funds that we've received to help us all going forward. That said, we know that there's still unmet needs in the community from the past 2 floods. Before I call up BR3T, Harrison, right? I want to make sure and point out one thing that in every communication opportunity we have with our community, we want to make sure that people are taking steps because of the things that happened in 2013 and 2015 and the recent flooding events. We want to make sure that we're as prepared as possible. And some of the things that we can do to be prepared is to go ahead and have a plan. I will bet you that most of the people in this room have a plan. Whether you had one before May of last year, I will bet you have one now. And I'll bet you that you worked with your neighbors to make sure that they've got a plan. If you have elderly people that live next door or down the street, have a plan to be able to communicate with them and somebody be thinking about them. I know we've got neighborhood representatives who have been working on that, so I congratulate and applaud you, but I also want to remind you, if you haven't, make sure you have a plan. Emergency notifications. We've got, we'll go into a little more detail later on about how you can register for emergency notifications, but we want to make sure that your cell phones, in addition to your landlines, are going to be a notification tool for you. We want you to have family preparedness plans. We were kind of speaking about it earlier with the evacuation plans, but we want to make sure that it's not only your household, but your family and any neighbors that you know or are close to, that everybody is being thought about in the event of an emergency. And finally, at every opportunity you have, we want you to communicate your needs to us. We're going to give you some email addresses, some phone numbers, some contact information where you can reach us. We want to be a tool and a resource to help you be more prepared. Now, with that said, BR3T is a resource that may be able to help with many of your unmet needs. If you haven't already tapped into it, now is a perfect opportunity to get connected with BR3T. I'd like to invite a representative with BR3T to come up, Harrison.
Long-term recovery is a long process. The BR3T has already made significant headway with its partners, including 41 major rebuilding projects have been completed, 100 minor repair projects have been completed, 80 homes are currently under construction or in the permit process. Debris removal has been completed on over 500 properties, and thousands of volunteers have given tens of thousands of volunteer hours to the communities. Our network consists of over 25 partners, and most importantly, 100% of resources raised by the BR3T stay locally within the region.
All right, how can you share your information and get information? We'd ask you to contact us at floodrecovery@sanmarcostx.gov. Like I said earlier about the idea cards, we'd like you to fill out an idea card if you have an idea. If you communicate it to us verbally in person, we'll get it. We're going to write it down. We're not going to leave your idea unnoted. But if you do not want to take some time to talk to us, but you've got an idea, please fill it out on one of the idea cards and put it in the voting box that's outside. We also want to remind you or invite you to attend the City Council's Flood Workshop that we're going to be holding on April 25th. We'll get additional information on activities taking place in flood damaged areas. We're going to provide input on the CDBG-DR action plan. Follow us and share ideas on our social media sites. Now we've got a quick poll, and this is where you're going to use your clickers, little white clickers. They've got letters and numbers across the top and on each row. We're going to ask questions that are going to have an answer, and you're just going to select the letter that corresponds with the answer that applies to you. Okay, before you start answering, I want to show you how the survey is going to work. And this is our test and sample question. Don't answer on this slide. So when you see the answers really big, don't answer. Then we're going to go to this slide. This is the slide where you can answer. It's going to show a graph on the right side that shows what the results are of the poll. So we're going to be real-time results to your answers. So you're going to be able to see, right after you push the button, what the answers are. So at this time, what's your favorite color? A is red, B is blue, C is green, D is yellow, E is purple, and F is none of the above. It's also an opportunity for us to test our technology. I can't believe I lived in Oregon. All right, that's enough of the fun stuff. Are you a flood survivor with residential property damage? Again, don't answer on this slide. If you do answer on this slide, it's okay. You'll need to answer on the next slide too. A, I did not experience property damage. B, I experienced property damage in the Memorial Weekend 2015 flood. C, I experienced property damage in the October 2015 flood. D, I received property damage in both floods. And E, this question does not apply to me. Please answer now. All right, so for the vast majority of the people in the room, well, vast majority, for the majority of the people in the room, they received property damage in both floods. And the next most damaging flood was the Memorial Day weekend flood. There are a number of people where this question does not apply to. Are you a flood survivor with commercial property damage? A, I did not experience commercial property damage. B, I experienced commercial property damage in the Memorial Weekend 2015 flood. C, I experienced commercial property damage in the October 2015 flood. D, I received commercial property damage in both floods. And E, this question does not apply to me. If you own a rent house, if you rent a rent house, that is not commercial property damage. That is residential property damage. When we're asking about commercial property damage, we're talking about businesses. This is not a question that applies to the HUD funding. We're just curious about how much commercial property damage and how many commercial representatives are here and coming to the meetings. We are restricted from spending the HUD funds and FEMA funds and CDBG funds to assist businesses to recover. These funds are for residents and projects that will benefit residents. So now, please answer the question. A, I did not experience commercial property damage. B, commercial damage in the Memorial flood. C, commercial damage in the October flood. D, commercial damage in both floods. So like on Tuesday, it really doesn't apply to most of the people in the room. Right. If you receive residential property damage, do you own or rent? A, I own my home. B, I rent a home. C, I rent a townhouse, condo, or apartment. D, I live in a flood damaged home, but I'm not the owner or renter. E, this question does not apply to me. Please answer now. So the majority of the people in the room, 62%, own their homes, and there are a handful that it doesn't apply to. Next question. If you received commercial property damage, do you own or rent? A, I own my commercial property. B, I rent commercial property. C, this question does not apply to me. For the one person in the room, I think, please answer now. Actually, everyone please answer. I'm just guessing that there could be a lot of people saying C. Next question. Do you have flood insurance? A, yes, before the 2015 flooding events. B, yes, after the Memorial Day flood, but not before. C, yes, after the All Saints Day flood, but not before. D, no. And E, this question does not apply to me. Please answer now. All right, so we still have a significant number of people in the area that don't have flood insurance. And then the other majority was had insurance before the flooding events or got insurance after the Memorial Day flood. The main answers. If you're a flood survivor, are you able to live in your home now? A, my home is livable. B, my home is only partially livable. C, I was not able to move back to my home after the flood, or not yet able to move back to my home after the flood. D, this question does not apply to me. Please answer now. All right, so for 41% of the people, their home is now livable. but there are still people that have not been able to move back after the flood, 20%, and that's a big number. Have you submitted a floodplain permit application? A, yes. B, no, I had damage and I have not submitted an application. And we can't track these answers. This is not an answer for us to be able to take punitive action. We want to know how many residents that are attending the surveys and the meetings that have not submitted a floodplain permit application. So there is no way for us to track these answers. They're anonymous. So B, no, I had damage and I have not submitted an application. C, my home was damaged in both floods, but I've only submitted one application. D, I did not receive flood damage. E, this question does not apply to me. Please answer now. And so the majority of the biggest question was E, the question doesn't apply, and then no, I had damage and I have not submitted an application. Next question, what would you like the city to do to assist in flood recovery? A, offer options to help me move out of a flood-prone area. B, make the area I live in less likely to flood in the future. C, make my home more resilient to flooding. I should note that there was a desire on Tuesday to answer all three, but just pick the one that you most identify with, and that's what we'll do right now. So please answer now. So we're pretty evenly spread, although there was one answer that got more answers than the rest. Make the area I live in less likely to flood, but there is a desire for the other two as well. This helps us figure out how we can communicate best with residents. Do you have internet access? A, yes through home internet. B, yes through my cell phone. C, yes through both my home internet and my cell phone. D, no, I don't have internet access. Please answer now. So for the majority of the area, we have access through both the home internet and cell phone, although we do have some that don't have any internet access at all. All right, next question. Have you signed up for emergency notifications? A, yes. B, no. And C, I don't know. And this is one area where I want to call attention to the bottom of the slide. In order to register your cell phone for emergency alerts, you go to sanmarcostx.gov/alerts, and it'll walk you through the process of how to register your cell phone to receive emergency alerts. All right. Please answer now. Have you signed up for emergency notifications? A, yes. B, no. C, I don't know. I would recommend and request that if you answer B or C, that you go to the website that we noted at sanmarcostx.gov/alerts and register your cell phone. So the answers, the majority of the room has not registered, and about a third of the room has. How would you like to receive information about flood recovery? A, newspaper. B, social media. C, direct mail. D, phone calls. E, text messages. F, email. And G, another method. Please answer now. All right, so for the most of the room said email, and then second most responded option was text message. Now, before we jump into questions from the audience, and just to let you know how we're going to do this, I have Trey Hatt, who is going to stand in as our microphone stand. He's going to stand up here in the middle and hold the microphone. I'd like people who want to ask a question to just queue in front of Trey, and he'll hold the microphone up for you. We want to make sure that the rest of the room can hear the questions asked, in addition to the answer that I or staff provide. Before we jump to that, though, I want to touch on two of the questions that were asked on Tuesday in the event, and I'm sure there's people here that want to have answers to these questions as well. One question was, are the funds going to be spent in the areas that were damaged, or to address areas that were damaged in San Marcos. And yes, I don't normally jump out and speak for council, but on this question, council has spoken unanimously and vociferously that they want to make sure that the funds that they expend on this project will directly benefit residents in areas that were damaged by the flood. So we're not going to work on a public works project over in the hill country or over the aquifer or something like that. This is going to focus to address flooding, primarily on the east side of town. There was some, like where we're at right now, that's on the west side of 35 that was damaged as well. The projects we do are going to make the area more resilient to flooding. That's our promise, that's our commitment, and it's also, quite frankly, a requirement of the funding. We will not be allowed to spend these funds in areas that are not low to moderate income, or we have to be able to assure that the benefit of the funds is going to go to areas that are low to moderate income populations. Our city primarily and mostly does fit that criteria. Janice, am I making sure to answer that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. There's a lot of steps that we have to go through as we spend these funds. Being that they are housing and urban development funds, through the CDBG process, there's very detailed criteria that we're going to have to meet and process that we're going to have to satisfy as we go through, identify projects, and move forward. Another question that was asked is, are we going to do a bypass project that's going to have an adverse impact on the city of Martindale? The only question I can answer there is we don't know. Well, no, I can guarantee you that we will not do a project that's going to have an adverse impact on the city of Martindale. But we don't know if we're going to do a bypass project or not. That's a Army Corps of Engineers project. The project is still being evaluated, but we don't know what the outcome of that's going to be. It has not been designed. It's in a conceptual phase right now, so there's a lot of work to be done on that, as is going to be the case for any engineered solution. With that said, if you have any questions, please come forward. And if we have anybody who's mobility challenged that wants to ask a question, we'll get the mic as close to you as we possibly can. We are wire limited though.
My question is, my son is a student of Texas State, and I don't see anybody here representing Texas State. He was in a brand new apartment complex down off Marina Springs, and I get that phone call at 5:30 in the morning, my car's going under, I can't get to it. Apartment complex is less than a year old. No warning, no call, no nothing. Texas State didn't alert them, the complex didn't alert them. Texas State students need to know that they are living in a flood zone area. When I signed that contract with him, I stated that to the people that were people in power, which were other students. You're living in a flood zone. Oh yes ma'am, we know that. And you can see the Blanco River right there. How are those students going to be notified and aware, and parents that are unknowingly delivering their babies to those apartments that are in flood zones, how are they going to be aware? Because those apartments are willing and able to rent out those apartments to kids without any notification whatsoever.
Right. That's something that council has identified as well as a challenge. And we have...
Kara Green.
Oh yeah, if you come up, if you just state your name and your address.
Sorry, I live in New Braunfels, thank God. Sorry.
But you have a family member in the area.
My mother
And your son. Right.
and my son.
But with regard to rental properties, both multifamily and single-family rental properties, we've taken steps to make sure at this last council meeting that any resident as they sign their lease in a flood hazard area, we identified it as a special flood hazard area, but that's floodplain, floodway, or any other area that has previously flooded that we've identified. Is that how we identified that? Correct. Okay. So we're requiring a notification at the time of the lease. It's a separate form. So it's not like they're gonna go through the lease and miss it. It's a separate form that they have to read and sign.
Thank you.
And so they're gonna be notified. It might not save the car in the future, but at least they'll know that they're living in an area that has flooded in the past or is flood prone. We've also taken some steps to make sure that rental properties that receive damage have to provide documentation to the city and proof to the city that they've taken efforts to clean their properties or to sanitize their properties, mold remediation and things like that. We're not going to check and see how they did it. They've just got to affirmatively state that they've done it.
Just want to encourage them to register their cell phones as well so that they get that notification as quickly as possible.
And we're working with apartment complexes to make sure and get that process out to their residents. The college kids, the university students, they're transient, they come and go, so we've got to keep getting that message out. So if you live in an apartment, if you have family that live in an apartment, please remind them on a frequent basis to register their phone and make sure if you change your phone, register your new phone.
I would also encourage you to understand that when you get a National Weather Service warning, we actually, whether you sign up or not, we can still take over your cell phones and send you signals, and we did that multiple times. But people do not take the NWS warning as us. So if you see it, don't disregard it. That is us, usually. And we ask them to send the warning for our areas, and it'll blow your phone up. It makes a different sound. A lot of people will turn off their GPS, and it won't work because it's based on your GPS. Most phones have that set. Of course, they talk right when I'm trying to do this. Most phones are set up automatically. You can't turn it off. You can, some of the more technologically astute, especially the student population, have figured out how to do that in the middle of the night so they don't get interrupted. So you might want to motivate your young ones to keep it on.
Now, the turning off the GPS won't affect the notification from the city. Our notifications go to the number, not to cell numbers that are in the location. Also, just to clarify, we can't take over your phone.
Right.
We can cause you to receive a text if you requested it. Also, your phone won't blow up. We will give you enough text possibly during an event that it might make you think that. I just wanted to clarify that because it's always possible that somebody thinks you can take over the phone.
Geolocated, we're calling a specific area that we do need their GPS on, so.
Yes, that's true. It is better if you do leave your GPS on. I know that hits your batteries, but during an emergency event, during a flood event, during a heavy rain event, please always turn those on because if you're in the geographic area, we also do area notices and don't hit the entire phone list. So it's possible that we might do a geographically limited notification and we would want to make sure that you have your GPS on in that situation. Yes, ma'am.
Want me to state my name?
Yes, ma'am, Sarah.
My name is Sarah Lee Underwood Myers. I live on Parker Drive, which is right down from, in the Blanco Gardens neighborhood. Ms. Burleson and I are the Kona reps for that neighborhood. And I would ask that our city planners and our city council and our,
Planning commissioners.
yeah, that one. What is it? Yeah, that one. Those decisions, when these questionable areas that are sensitive, to be considerate that this will happen and not spend our tax dollars on all this research and all this planning on areas that are too sensitive and not even zoned for it. So that would be my request to our city staffers, is be mindful, don't put this crap in the areas where we're gonna have consequences like this.
Hi, Stephen Ramirez, board president of the San Marcos River Foundation. I'm at 1207 MLK. A couple comments for you guys. It's clear that whatever we do is going to be very expensive, and studying the building of a Blanco bypass channel takes money away from the citizens who need assistance now. The nearly 10-year-old study estimated $67 million to dig that trench, which does not include the cost of land acquisition. And so we can assume that costs will have increased this year, and it doesn't address the current needs of the neighborhoods. We already paid for more accurate studies with the flood models of Blanco Gardens, and we should use that information to improve the localized drainage issues and consider modest changes to the riverbank to address the most obvious weak points and vulnerabilities. So more of a small, fine scale approach rather than a massive project as a Blanco bypass would be. And do these same sort of analysis and studies to the other areas of need, such as this region to the west of I-35 as well, not just the Blanco Gardens neighborhood. Buyouts may be a real necessity for some of our citizens, and others will undoubtedly need assistance to raise their homes. Help our people, give them the assistance they need, and don't waste it on a bypass monstrosity. You can't tame the Blanco River, and there will always be a bigger flood. Our impacted citizens deserve this money more than anyone or anything else. Thank you.
A couple of comments on that. Council is committed to not wasting any money. The Corps studying doesn't cost anything to us. We're not spending anything on that study, zero. Now, there may be expenditure to get a, what's the opinion? Chief's report from the Corps of Engineers, which is requesting them to assess whether or not this is a project they're going to move forward with. But as far as engineering or design, there will be nothing spent on it at this point. All of the money is going to be spent on projects that will directly benefit flood damaged areas. With regard to what we know about the core project, again, it's very much in the conceptual phase. It's very far reaching. It extends far to our west, and it also goes to the east of the city, and would have an effect on the way the water comes to the city and its potential that there could be flood control dams or what, we just don't know. We don't know enough about the project yet to assess whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing. But we're certainly not going to throw it out before we do know that. I think that would be a rash or imprudent move. We're also going to evaluate smaller projects that will be engineered solutions that will make the area more flood resistant. We will also evaluate projects inside the neighborhoods to assist residents with individual needs or gap needs. Anything that's not being met by FEMA or not being addressed through base flood elevation changes that any projects may cause. Improvements, rather. We're not going to do projects that's going to exacerbate flooding in the area. So, with regard to that project, it's premature to say whether we will do it or won't do it, or whether it will be done or won't be done. What we can say is that we're not doing it. It's the Corps of Engineers. If they do decide to do it, we will participate, or we would be a participant in that, along with other partners like Hayes County, like the Texas Water Development Board, and GBRA, or Guadalupe Blanco River Authority. Didn't want to hit you with another acronym. So it's not going to be a city of San Marcos doing a trench. It would be the Corps of Engineers doing a bypass project with other state and regional partners. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. My name is James Baker. I didn't have a flood, but I have credentials. I came from New Orleans. I was flooded in Hurricane Katrina, came over here in 2005. So I lived in a neighborhood that was just across the line from New Orleans. Old Metairie, very nice neighborhood. Some of the wealthiest people lived there. We all got flooded out. Benson lived there, known as Saints. He got flooded out. I had a business that was in Chalmette, which was east of the 9th Ward. I think probably a lot of you saw about the 9th Ward and all the damage there. Well, this was east of the 9th Ward, so the reporters never got out there. So it flooded like 11 feet more during the high stages and stayed high floods for a long, long time. The area was destroyed, our business destroyed, the hospital torn down. So a lot of these things happened. And I want to talk about the Army Corps of Engineers. The Army Corps of Engineers is not a group of people, it's an organization. So we should think about the Army Corps of Engineers as like a room of chairs. Sometimes those chairs are filled by smart people. Sometimes those chairs are filled by not so smart people. Sometimes those chairs are filled by good people, and sometimes those chairs are filled by people who are working to make money for other people and not really caring what's good or bad. So the Army Corps of Engineers is not someone that we should look at as an authority. We should look at that as an organization that might put out some idea that may be good, and they have done lots of good things. Don't get me wrong. But they also have done some bad things. So it's not somebody that we should trust as an authority. We should look at the idea for what it's worth. Now, I can tell you that I've had a lot of experience with, if you want to look up something that they've done that hasn't been good, look up the Mississippi River Gulf Outlet, MRGO. That was a bypass that went from the Mississippi River to the Gulf. It was built to help economics, to make ships go past the circuitous route to the Gulf. thought to be a great idea in 1957, was promoted by some of the economic people in the city of New Orleans and St. Bernard Parish. There was a study done next year, 1958, by the U.S. Department of Interior, said excavation of the MRGO could result in major ecological damage with widespread and severe ecological consequences. 1958. So, as is often the case, the people who were worried about the money won out. The environmentalists, who surprisingly are almost always right when we look at history, didn't win. And what happened? We had an ecological disaster that happened. Saline intrusion came in. It has destroyed the wetlands. And then in 2005, Hurricane Katrina came, and the water came boom up the MRGO, burst the canals that were already faulty, and the whole city flooded. St. Bernard Parish, where I had my business, was destroyed. The community has never come back again. So these bypass channels, I can tell you, are fraught with lots of danger. I encourage everybody, including our city government, to please look at this with open eyes, because history repeats itself. History repeats itself. If you live long enough, you understand that. I'm not old yet, but I'm getting there. I can see that. Now, during the time that we were talking to adjusters about the damage that had been done to our home and our business, we got to meet several adjusters who have been doing this for all their lives. And we said, well, what about raising our home? Building it up higher. He said, I have never worked. I've been doing this all my life. I've seen it in California. I've seen it all over America. Water is a powerful force. It can knock down your little stilts.
Yes.
Raising your home, putting this up, you know who that benefits? The contractors that make the money doing it. They're not evil people. They want to help you, but sometimes things don't help, and sometimes unintended consequences are bad. I'll tell you what does work is don't build in a floodplain. I don't know, my wife's showing today, but I have to tell you, don't abuse nature because you want to build or live in a floodplain. That is something we should hold near and dear to our hearts. It's really very important. Spending this money to help some people by buying out their properties is a great idea. Now, I always wonder why some people live in the desert and they're dying of thirst. And the reason why is because sometimes they can't get out of the desert. Sometimes they have no place to go. There can be hostile tribes that are waiting to kill them if they come over there. They don't have the economics to move out of the desert. They're stuck in one place. It happens. So that's why when we see people that are dying of thirst and they live in the desert, we say, why do they live there? They're so stupid. It's because they can't get out. They are trapped. So if we can use some of this money for the people who do want to get out of their trap, then I say, please, let's do that. That is a wise resource because that prevents it from happening again, which is what we're trying to do. And I think that's about all I have to say. So thank you very much. I hope
I took a couple notes. I did want to provide some additional information. I think I can speak for council. We haven't made any predetermination about what projects are going to be done. But I will say we won't presume to rule any out either. We need to evaluate all of the options. There is no bad option at this point. We need to identify the one that's going to have the best bang for the buck for our community and make the best positive impact on our resiliency to flooding events. We have modified our development standards and are in the process of modifying our development standards to make a significant impact on how people can develop and how developers can develop in floodplains, in floodways, or not develop, really. It's going to be a lot more challenging than it has been in the past. And also, with regard to, it's a shame getting older. With regard to buyouts or raising houses, each of them are options. Like I said, there's no bad option. Each of them also have their challenges. With the buyouts, we need to have significant high level of participation and buy-in to the buyout for us to be able to make it work. With raising homes, it will be challenged to do that only because the funds won't address all of the houses that are in the damaged areas. So $25 million is a lot of money, but it's not enough to do, but we might be able to do some combination of all of those things. We're certainly not going to, I doubt very much, I wouldn't want to say won't, but I doubt very much that there's going to be one silver bullet project. I think we're going to evaluate a lot of projects, and a number of them will have merit to different levels and different levels of engagement. So I don't know what that formula is going to be and what projects those are going to be. It's very early in the process. But we are definitely going to look at all of the projects available to us and all the solutions available to us right now until we rule, until we go through a process to rule them out and identify the most beneficial projects. More questions?
Yes, I have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My name is Michelle Robo. We own property in Riverdale and living there soon. Very close to where the potential bypass might be dumping water. I want to thank you specifically for your firsthand report on that. Last night I did some research on the Army Corps of Engineers, and I want to beseech the San Marcos leadership to really study the previous history of Army Corps of Engineers. There have been many controversies, not just Katrina, even though that was a huge one. Yes. And in fact, in 2008, the U.S. District Court placed responsibility for the flood walls collapse squarely on the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The leaders of the Army Corps of Engineers admitted that they had a lot of oversights and faults. So just because it's a government agency, and I realize it might put you in an awkward spot because you're receiving federal money, and here's the federal agency, but they might not have our best interest in mind. Austin paper today is talking about the big rains coming, yes. And they repeated again that what this area is very different than any other place in the United States. Just because it might work in Nebraska doesn't mean that it's going to work in such a volatilely flood-prone area. So I want to thank you again for getting input. Oh, and one last thing, this lady that I met now and talked to was mentioning that in preparation for the Woods apartment, there was a ditch to the drainage area to the San Marcos River that had been concreted up. It seems like there might have been some multiple aspects of development that could still be reversed that didn't make sense, that created flooding potential. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. The only thing that I can say at this point with regard to the Corps is they cannot compel us to do a project. They can't compel the city to do something they don't want to do. If they do come to us and say, we do have a viable project, we want you to participate, then we have to evaluate, is it in our interest to do it? Is it in our residents' interest? Is it going to move the needle significantly, and is it worth investing a significant portion of our funds to do it? But they cannot compel us to do a project that we don't want to do. Now, they may do a project outside our boundaries. Could do that. But they can't compel us to participate in a project that we don't see merit.
Mullins of 612 Hopkins. I wanted us to try to address what we have done or could be doing for the businesses that are within homes, small businesses or home offices that possibly were affected. And then we touched on the fact that we're not going to deviate some of it to commercial property, but some of the residents that were affected have home businesses inside.
That's going to be a question that you're going to need to discuss with Janice after the Q&A section, because there is going to be some complicating factors there. We can still work on the residences, but I don't know, and Janice is going to know what the impacts of a business being in that residence are on its eligibility for funding.
Lucy Angel, 1000 Cadbury Street, and we've lived here 46 years, and we were flooded, we lost everything. This is very difficult for someone who's 80 years old to start over. We lost everything, the house, everything in it. We had a a greenhouse outside, and that water leaves that greenhouse all the way to the neighbor's yard. And so it's very powerful water. And when we built there, it was not in a floodplain. We checked all of that. So there obviously has been some construction and other things have happened since we built there 46 years ago. And those apartments that were built right there on the Blanco River directed that water right to us. And we had 5 to 6 feet of water in the house, and it took everything. Well, we had planned to leave that house to our son, who lost everything in Martindale. Everything. And so that house is sitting there. It looks beautiful on the outside, but there is nothing in it. Nothing but studs. And here we are, having to use our retirement to live in another place, not in San Marcos, because we had to find something that would accommodate myself, my husband, and my handicapped son in a wheelchair. And we are starting over at 80. There's something wrong with that. A lot wrong with that. And I don't think I'll ever get over this. It's been almost a year. I still have moments like this. And I'm still looking for stuff that I can't find, that it's gone. Important papers, pictures of my children who were raised in the house. It's all gone. Nothing. So my comment would be, please, I want to buy out for that property. It's there, the house is there, but I want to buy out so that we can recoup something. We had to use our retirement to relocate. And so starting over at 80 is no fun. And we have a handicapped son, as I said, in a wheelchair. We lost a lot of his equipment. We had to accommodate this house with everything that was already in our old house. Bars, everything. I had a special bathroom. Everything had to be recreated. And I think the city was remiss in permitting these builders to build in these places. We were here in 70 when we had that big flood. Never even came close to us. Not at all. The first time we were flooded was in 98, but nothing like this. Nothing like this.
What street are you on again?
Hackberry Street.
And everybody keeps saying, what? Hackberry is in what?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows Hackberry Street.
Yeah, the Fairlawn area was hit with about 8 feet of 50
Yes,
water.
and we had 5 to 6 feet of water in the house. Everything in that house was not salvageable. Right. So we lost everything. Starting over at 80 is no fun.
I think one thing that would be useful for all of us, and certainly probably for the council members in the room, after we finish questions, I'd like to get a couple of residents to just come up and tell us, some of their stories. In as much as it will help us identify solutions, we also want to hear what you have to say about what's happened, about what's been done, and about what our options are going forward. We can't ignore what the past. We are focused forward on looking for solutions that are going to move the needle in the right direction. When I say that, what I mean is make the area less likely to flood, to be clear. So.
Good morning. My name is Elaine Burson. I'm a resident of Blanco Gardens, Barber Drive, 1109. I've lived in my home since 1975, October 11th. I've seen several floods, and I've stood on my porch and watched the water run down the street. Barber Drive, Conway, Smith Lane, all that, and it went straight by the homes. It didn't go inside the homes. I asked a question, and it's kind of like maybe closing the gate after the calendar out. I am coming up the I-35 frontage road from River Road, from Cuevas, or the side of Cuevas Produce, to the San Marcos River, was a humongous drainage.
Yes.
And I was driving home one day, and there was two sewage trucks there, and they were filling up that drainage, and I thought, why in the world are they filling up that drainage? Never expected anything to happen. And that made me question that again. But I haven't heard that addressed in any of the conversations. And I would just like to know why was it closed? And was there a reason to close it?
So the question is, why was a drainage, where?
On the frontage road going north from the River Road, it ran from the River Road to the San Marcos River.
Did we fill in a drainage channel from River Road to the San Marcos River near Cuevas?
There was an extension of the box culverts
Yes.
along there that this
It
past
took a
summer.
lot of water in the time of flood to the river.
Okay, so they didn't fill it in, they installed box culverts?
Right,
Was that to increase capacity or what?
to bury it, to create the driveway to the Woods Park.
Okay, gotcha. Right, so,
I got a question, I can speak pretty loud. If there is a buyout, if there is a buyout, you gotta remember that a lot of these folks are retired and they're in a fixed income. It's gonna really be impossible for them to go out and buy another house.
Yes.
They just won't be able to afford that. I'm sorry, everybody hear me okay?
Yes. It was.
yeah, and buyouts, one of the components of buyouts, it's not as simple, and I won't pretend to get into all the details on buyouts right now, but it's not as simple as giving someone a check and your hands are clean. If you're the federal or governmental agency that's doing a buyout, there are certain requirements beyond that, where there didn't used to be. Previously, I don't know when it changed, but I know it was within the last handful of years. A buyout would be, you assess a value, you do a buyout, the resident agrees to the buyout, and they go find other lodging, other places. Like you said, there were a lot of people that wanted the buyout, but didn't have the means after the buyout to go buy a new home. So that is a component of that process now.
Something that I would like to see, I'm sorry, my name is Angie Aritas and I live 612 Barber Drive. One thing I'd like to see taken out completely from the dialogue, if possible, on any developments going forward is this statement of, no, this development will not increase flooding hazards because it would be illegal to do so. The statement makes absolutely no sense, and it was something that we heard over and over and over again. Just because something is illegal means that it won't happen is nonsensical, and this, you know, and in this case and many others, was one of very educated people, whether they're developers or business people or engineers, really speaking to residents as if they don't know what they're talking about, and as if we don't know where the floodwaters go, and really being spoken down to. I'm going to cut my rant short there. But the other two small things, and I know because we have some really big decisions going forward that are going to be years in decision making and implementation, but two things that are shorter term that are affecting people now, I think. One is, you know, when you're dealing with a lower income area, there's a lot of households that have often more cars than they have drivers.
Yes.
Because, I'm going to speak for myself here. At one point last year, we had 2 drivers at our house and 4 cars, because all 4 of them were in not very good shape, and we were hoping that on any given day 2 of them ran. But they're not worth enough to
to sell. So you keep them until they die, that's what you do. And when there's a flood coming, even if it's not a bad enough flood that I think it's going to get into my house, one of the considerations is always, we gotta get these cars out of here, because they're not insured. But if we lose them, that's a lot of asset loss for our family. So luckily in the Memorial Day flood, we didn't lose one, but we did lose one in the Halloween flood. It took us until last week to finally get someone to take it, and we got $65 for it. And so we have abandoned cars all over the neighborhood. So I know it seems like kind of a small thing, and it's not something that every demographic deals with, but it is something that the demographics in neighborhoods do deal with. And I think it's something that we should at least be talking about amongst ourselves of, there's flood waters coming. They're probably not going to get in our house, but hey, where's that lot that we're all just going to take our cars to at 3 in the afternoon that's going to be above the water, and we'll go retrieve them later, at least have somewhere for them to go. The other thing is that I know I can't be the only one in this situation where I have a mortgage on my house, so I had to have flood insurance. There was some sort of glitch with my flood insurance, and it has not paid out, and they're saying it will not pay out because of some paperwork error that happened when they made the policy. But because I supposedly had flood insurance, I didn't get as much from FEMA. And I shouldn't have. I should be getting that money from that flood insurance. But I don't have, like many of us, I don't have experience hiring lawyers and insurance lawyers. And this is this thing that's hovering over me now, is that I have to get through a lawyer to hound down my insurance company. Meanwhile, I got 2 kids sleeping on the couch since last May. So, and I'm not trying to wind my own issue here, but I can't be the only one. And so these are these small things that kind of fall through the cracks, that we had a $500 car that now is destroyed, and that I can't figure out how to get my flood insurance paid out. So if there's any of these resources that are coming through the city that can help with these types of issues, I think it would be good.
Okay. A lot of good comments. What Angie was saying about the cars is one of the major challenges with any type of heavy emphasis on lifting houses as one of the solutions, because it doesn't change the elevation of the streets, and the cars are always on the street or in the driveways. If water is high enough to get where the house used to be, it's going to take the cars again. And then you have the problem of not only my car's not worth anything and I can't sell it, it's going to cost me something to get rid of it. So it's a double whammy. So we recognize that. And that's going to have to be weighed as we look at those options. And so lifting houses is still something that will be considered. With regard to high ground, that's going to be part of that, having a plan. I know in the Fairlawn area, the church, I forget the name of the church, it's right there at the mouth of the neighborhood, and it stayed dry. The parking lot stayed dry. A lot of people moved their cars there, maybe in May, and then didn't in October. I want to say that was one of the challenges over there. But having a place to go and being able to get there before it's too late to get there is going to be a big part of that plan. But the cars, we definitely hear what you're saying. There were a lot of cars damaged in May. The velocity of water rammed. There was wood sticking out of the radiators. There was trash cans shoved underneath cars. There were cars shoved into cars. So we definitely hear what you're saying.
Hi, I'm Lisa Recomplete at 1322 Belvin. I really appreciate your story, your narrative that you shared, and I want to encourage everybody who's been a flood survivor to keep continuing to share your stories. It's very important for us to hear your narrative. I think it's also very important for you to just on a personal level, emotional level, to share that. And one thing that's really cool about our town is that whenever there's a development that hits or flooding, people always emerge and get involved. We had a threat on Belvin that was going to flood our neighborhood. Mr. Baker, it was just been a pleasure to meet you, sir. And I'm just so pleased to see you here today. And I didn't know you from Louisiana, and I just appreciate your narrative. So if anything, this gives us an opportunity to kind of turn things around. I'd like to hear specifically what in the Code Rodeo they're doing, because I went to the P&Z, and I, you know, when they did the Capes Camp thing, and I'm the one that shot all the footage, the public hearing footage, of all those meetings they had with the city council, and I watched what the city staff said, and they unequivocally told us it would not flood. That was the quote, and there was some confusion on who the flood administrator was, and so I have a photographic memory for these things. And so now I'm noticing it like the P&Z when it's the doctor, the city council, that there's not any flood modeling. It all happens at site planning stage. I think that's the word that they use. And so I'm not understanding why there's not this moment of repose whenever even a lemonade stand wants to be put up in our town, that we do a 3D modeling to make sure it's not going to flood and ruin someone's life of 80 years that they have to move at age 80 years. Why are these developers getting on these breaks and we're not putting their feet to the fire with the 3D modeling? The last thing I want to say is that these TxDOT projects create projectiles. I'm over there by Dixon where it flooded, and that TxDOT project, there were projectiles that would have gone up and down that area, and they just leave that stuff. And y'all know they're doing the overpass right now, right? And you know that area floods. And so there's going to be lots of equipment and lots of excavation. And so I guess my question is, how specifically is the code going to address this? Because we're at the tail end of it. We've spent lots of money. Thank you.
I was just talking to, thank you, Lisa Marie. I was listening to what you had to say. I was asking a question relevant to that. But next question.
But you didn't answer the question.
Okay, what was the question? I'm sorry.
Well, how specifically is the Code Rodeo addressing the issue of getting 3D modeling data before something gets put on the P&Z agenda or city council? Everyone keeps saying, well, the woods flooded my neighborhood. We're in a Code Rodeo right now. What are y'all doing to the land development code to reassure all these property owners that a gas station's not going to come up and flood out our neighborhood or apartment complex like what they proposed over there for Lamar? I mean, that would have been, especially when I was looking at those sidewalks, that would have created a berm just across the street. I mean, that came out in the meeting. So, and I get sassy because I've been attending these things for 2 years, and I filed a ton of open records requests. I know how much money the city's spending on these consultants, and Blanco could have told you her neighborhood would have flooded. We don't need $360,000 in consulting to tell us about crafting land development code. It's very logical.
Yeah, the Code Rodeo was one of the initial phases of the Code SMTX process where we're redeveloping or rewriting the land development code. And that was a process where we solicited public input on the code rewrite process. As far as the revisions to the land development code through the Code SMTX process, I don't think there will be any requirement to have 2D modeling prior to going to P&Z. However, there will be requirements to do 2D modeling at some points and with some projects. Am I saying that accurately? Okay, I want to make sure I wasn't.
So then theoretically someone could build something that will cause flooding, but we won't know until after the development's been built.
Well, I didn't say that they're not going to be required to do 2D modeling in all situations. It's just not going to be in every situation.
See, my opinion is it should be, I just said a lemonade stand. You put a lemonade stand up anywhere in San Marcos, you should have to do modeling before it hits site stage. I mean, because citizens say, you're going to flood our neighborhood out, you're going to flood our neighborhood out when you go to a public hearing, and y'all go, well, we won't know until site planning. So that way, our advocacy is not validated until the neighborhood is flooded out. Because y'all said unequivocally, David Roboto, or whatever his name is, he said it won't flood, and I looked it on my YouTube video, so.
Good morning, I'm Roa Gleason. I live on 909 Conway, and we flooded 2 times, just like all of my immediate neighbors. And my husband and I just moved back last week, but it's bare bones still, so we're just still, making it. And I'm a teacher. I teach in Austin, and it's very hard for me to leave the city right now, and especially with weather coming Monday. I'm thinking of having a sub already. Yeah. So I don't want to get stuck out of the the city like I did in October, so that was pretty awful. I just, my main request is that I would really like to spend some time in our neighborhood cleaning up the alleyways, because those provide a lot of just immediate drainage for maybe like the weather we might have this weekend, where it might not flood, but it's gonna get nasty, and we're gonna need some drainage, and all of our alleyways are, thigh high in grass with trash and overgrown trees that should have been seen to months ago once spring started. And, of course, just, there's trash from both floods. I tried a little bit behind my house, but I just, I can barely pick up my yard. So, I can't really devote as much time. I really wish we could, but I just like to request, because the neighbors, we just can't do it all. We're tired. I know for me, I go to bed after 1 and get up at 5:30 every day, and to get to school, sit in traffic and all that. So it's hard. It's been a whole year, and after a while, people don't have a lot of sympathy for your schedule anymore, because you're expected to keep on keeping on, plus do your remodel and keep your finances in order, which is hell, of course. Everyone knows that in this room. And so I just like to request just some general spruce up of the neighborhood too, and I don't think that's a lot to ask, and I don't think that, I'd like to see the city workers out there actually doing something instead of standing looking at a hole like I've been seeing them doing when they've been putting in a sidewalk. So, thank you.
As far as Alice, thank you for the comment. We've been doing it some, and we will continue to look into that in the near future. At some point, we will transition how we've been doing cleanup and response in the affected areas. Technically speaking, the alleys are the responsibility of the homeowner, at least the area right behind the alley. Now, I'm not saying we're not going to come out there, and I'm definitely not saying, hey, take care of it. We're going to go out, and we're going to look at them, and where we see an opportunity, we're going to jump in and do it.
The trees around the power lines are really, really bad, and they've been bad for years, and that'd be a fire hazard.
We take care of the trees that are in proximity to the SMU power lines. There may be other lines out there that are not SMU power lines that we wouldn't address, so we need to assess whether or not those are telephone, cable, things like that, or if they're power, and sometimes they all look the same. So we'll definitely look at that as well.
Sarah Lee Underwood Meyer, Harper Drive. The next brush heap cleanup is May 14th, as well as an environmental cleanup the city's providing. That's the second out of 4. I participate in that every month, and we get a lot done. I have a truck and trailer. If you need help, you put it on the trailer, I will haul it for you. And Ms. Burleson and I have been working behind her alley, been in Mr. Miller's office many times. We've got concrete pieces and just trees down, and she's been needing that cleaned up right behind her house, 1109 in the alley, which is not in the front, it's in the back. But my question right now is directed to Ken Bell. We have a storm coming up, and I watched the news this morning. They said today we're fine, but tomorrow through Monday might be a different story. So my concern is the evacuation from the Woods Department with getting their cars out early if we have enough flood.
You mean what are we going to do to get the
Yes.
cars out? What we're expecting is between 3 and 6 inches. I'll just jump in, you can fill in where I missed the blanks. We're expecting 3 to 6 inches over the next 48 hours in this area. Some areas are going to receive between 7 and 10, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the area where we are. Now, don't take that as God's honest truth, because all those predictions and projections have a lot of error in them, as you saw how quickly the October flood surprised everyone last year. The cars at the Woods, we didn't experience, or we didn't see any cars get submerged at the Woods in either flood last year, although we definitely want to get notification to them and have them evacuate if we have something that will require it. We have worked with the apartment complex to have a good communication system in place and to have them work with their residents to get registered with the emergency notifications. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that they're as informed as possible. As you saw in some of the activities that took place during the October flood, they're not necessarily, we we can tell them things, but we can't, you know, require the most responsive or responsible behavior, so.
Hello, my name is Jordan Buckley. I just moved here recently from Austin, and I live at the corner of Burleson and Marion. And I read about the woods, and I've heard today a few things mentioned about them. I'm just kind of curious, kind of where things stand with the woods, whether they did violate, you know, the city's perspective, if there was violations, and so what sort of accountability lays out there, kind of what are next steps with dealing with the woods if they did violate what they said they were going to do.
Well, we're still working through that. We have determined through a 2D analysis that they did cause an increase in water of between inches and 2 feet on River Road, and then on a number of properties adjacent to River Road, moving some distance up towards Clare. So for about anywhere from just at the street all the way to, it's kind of it's a triangle shaped area of impact. But River Road is definitely impacted, and some properties moving up Conway up to Clare were where the highest impacts were.
And what sort of accountability is there for that?
I don't know what the result of that's going to be. There's going to be a lot of discussions on that.
Do we know when they'll have meetings or anything like that?
Well, we're going to be talking to them on April 25th at the city council meeting. But as I said, you know, it's too soon to know exactly what the outcome of those discussions are going to be. We still have not issued a final certificate of occupancy.
Wow.
And you're living
there already for over a year?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, that's a frequent thing done. Temporary certificates of occupancy are common.
Possible to revoke it?
No. The temporary certificate it is possible to revoke. Absolutely.
So they could have their occupancy status revoked?
Yes.
And then what happens to
They
the
take
apartment?
the apartment?
If the certificate of occupancy was revoked, they would. That's unlikely. But if, I mean, I don't think anybody wants to create 1,000 homeless people or people that don't have a place to live. That said, we have not issued That said, we haven't issued a final certificate of occupancy, so that's always an option.
My name is Brenda Contreras, and I live on Smith Lane. I've lived in that house since I was 7 years old, and I'm almost 58 now, so I've seen several floods through that neighborhood. During the Memorial Day flood, we were lucky, and I think we were lucky because when my father bought the house, he did a lot of buildup. He did a lot of land buildup. He put in a lot of dirt, a lot of grass. So I got lucky. Now, I was given some misinformation, and I was told, you can't file because you didn't get any water in your house. Well, it went under the house. And you know what happens when water gets under pier and beam? Everything settles. So I wound up getting insurance, and it became effective October 10th, right before the Halloween flood. And after that information, I was told, you didn't get your house, there's nothing you can do. Well, I did file. I filed in February, and they did come out, and they did assess the damage, and there was a lot of cleanup. And they even told me, good luck finding somebody to get under there and clean it up. You know, there's a lot of code that I have to do. I have to have proper venting. I did have venting, didn't have the venting that they need. I got plenty of venting now because it took it all out. But as a resident of that same house for 50 years, I've seen floods come and go. And my biggest problem is they came and they went quickly. They're not going quickly anymore. During the Halloween flood, they compared it to the 98 flood. I was in that house in the 98 flood. That water came up and it went down. This water came up and it took hours for this water to go down. And we watched it, several of us stood and we watched that water go all the way down the street, hit the apartments, come all the way down. It was just like a standing pond for hours and hours and hours. I thank God that it didn't get in my house. I would like to see the city really do something. Don't just say, okay, I'm gonna buy your house, I'm gonna give $50,000. Well, the average price of a home these days is anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000. We can't afford that. And most of us live in that neighborhood. If we didn't have to live in that neighborhood, we wouldn't live in that neighborhood because we could afford to move somewhere else. So we can't afford to move somewhere else. And buyouts, you know, it'd be great, but right now I got a sweet deal. I work in San Marcos. God forbid I will not hit that Highway 35 to go to Austin for a job and kill myself just for that. So I've got a sweet deal. I get an hour for lunch. I can come home every day. My husband's disabled. I have to come home and I have to check on him, and I have animals that I'm responsible for. So every day I get to come home for lunch. And I thank God for that. So I would like to stay in my home. Now, some of the problems that I've seen here lately, the other day they said, Austin Weather said we got 1.6 inches. I got 3.1. And my rain gauge is not by a gutter, it's set straight out, it's on a chain link fence, no trees, no nothing around it. When I got up the next morning, went to work, I could see where water had stood, where it flooded through, and there was debris about 3 feet on each side towards the center of the road. So, that being said, we don't have drainage. On Linda Drive, I saw them put sidewalks. Well, that's great, because then you don't have kids walking down the street. How the postman gets to the mailboxes now, I don't know. But what I did notice, and plus the trash cans were put out there on the sidewalks, everybody has to go around the middle. But what I did notice is that people's properties, it comes up to the sidewalk, there's about a 6-inch difference in height. So when you flood, what's going to happen to that water? It's going to pool behind the sidewalk on the property owner's side, and they're going to be responsible. I don't want that to happen on our street. Our street's not wide enough for sidewalks to begin with. Our street, we have drainage. We have about a 6-inch clean out hole that's missing the cover. It has been missing the cover for about 3 years now. So, you know, I'd like to see better drainage, and I would like to see my home raised. You know, maybe statistics show that doesn't work, but I want to stay in my home. I like my home. I like my neighborhood. I can afford it. So I like and we shouldn't be forced to move out because we got more students. That's great. The more people we have, the more money that's spent in this town. We're all about retail and food. That's what San Marcos is about, retail and food, but it provides education for students. Excellent, great. Our children, our grandchildren that live in this town have the affordability to go to school. Well, that's excellent. But the citizens of the town that have paid taxes all their life, it's like, who are you? Where do you live? You know, and I get high, oh, I'm sorry, you got flooded. And that's kind of about it. You know, and I didn't get the devastation. Thank God I didn't get the devastation that some people did. And I feel so bad for you. And if I could do something, I'd do it right now. But I can't. It's up to the city. And they need to be responsible. They've already, it's a shame you have to have a lawsuit against an apartment complex to stay in our neighborhood. And then you have to be careful, because money's awarded during a lawsuit. You have to be careful, because if you've got an insurance money, it has to be written properly. If you've got an insurance money, you might have to pay that insurance money back. So you have to be careful with all that. Buyouts, they give you $100,000 and buy you out. And that's not going to get you in another home if you're not, you know, to pay for it completely. What happens to your IRS taxes when you're given money like this? So everything has to be considered completely. Now you're talking about the ditches. Now I've noticed that the ditch on I-35, I hit that thing every day, twice a day. I hit it, and I've noticed the ditches are full of grass and debris. And right there by that stupid turnaround they got on Highway 80 that, you know, I put my life in my hands every day when I go through that, because you got 3 lanes of traffic merging into one. That is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. I feel like that. And some people come down on 80, they love it because they got a straight shot. But if you're going out 80 and you have to travel that, good when you take, right there by that ditch, that drain has been full since the Halloween flood. It's been full. So things aren't cleaned properly.
So you're
I
talking about
noticed-
Rebecca Street, right there, where there's a timber right in front of right in that deal.
Oh, yeah, well, I've noticed that
It's
the
a Rebecca.
drainage ditch right there by the kayak, by the river, that thing, that doesn't look real clean either. So, you know, we need to spend some city money cleaning up the neighborhood, normal cleanup. The street sweeper comes every once in a while, well, that's great, but they're sweeping it into everybody's yard. Yeah. You know, it doesn't suck it up, but it's not. So we need a little bit, we need attention in the neighborhood.
Yes,
That's
yes.
devastating. I mean, you know, God forbid, we have another flood this weekend.
That's right.
You know, everybody seems confident it's not gonna happen, but nobody knew it happened before.
Absolutely, you need to be prepared. I mean,
Yes,
we are
we're
saturated.
prepared. I've
I'm
signed
gonna-
up for it all.
Well, and I'm gonna come back and touch on those things, I'm not ignoring it.
Okay.
But you brought up the flood on that, we are saturated, we are gonna receive some rain, be prepared. Like I said, we don't anticipate something bad right now, but we're definitely not saying it's not going to happen. You know, take the appropriate steps, be ready.
Yeah, I signed up for that this morning, and anybody who hasn't signed up for the emergency alert, it directs you to a Code Red website, so that's right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, well, I was making sure I was on the right place, so I signed up, it was relatively simple, and I even got a login, another password. But I got a login for it to make sure that they didn't forget me, because I gotta know, but I can almost guarantee you, I'm gonna stay in my home. Because when you leave your home during a flood, I've watched the people go through the neighborhood and steal anything that would have tied that. So you can almost guarantee you're gonna have the majority of the people stay in their neighborhood, in their houses, because that's where they feel anything they own, they cherish, it's safe. And then getting back to it, you know, you have responsibilities, we have responsibilities as homeowners to our houses and our property, and we're working on it daily. Let's see, well, one other thing I wanted to ask is about property taxes. What's being done about the property taxes? I know last year we got a break. We went back to the year before value. And then I was told that it would go back on January 1st, it would go back to the previous reassessment. So since mine raised $20,000 value in 1 year's time, but I couldn't sell it even close for that right now, because nobody wants to buy in that neighborhood. Oh, you got flooded? Oh, well, I'm not buying over there. Are you crazy? I get letters from New York, Pennsylvania, everywhere in the world that I'll pay cash for your house. Yeah, right. That's a ripoff, by the way, so y'all be careful of that. But I want to know what are we doing? Because maybe it's my mail. I've noticed sometimes my mail doesn't come, you know, every other day. So if they've been sent out, I haven't received mine. So are we going to get, because like you said, there's a lot of people in that neighborhood that have not even been able to move back into their homes, and they're going to have to pay property taxes still. So I'd like yeah, so we need to find out what is being done to help us on our yearly property taxes.
Yeah, on the property taxes, and Steve, if you would come up here real quick, I know that you can still reach out to the appraisal district, but I want Steve to give the actual, all the details. And once Steve touches on the appraisal district question, I do want to go back and hit on buyouts, raising, and other projects that you talked about.
Hi, my name is Steve Parker. I'm Assistant City Manager and Chief Financial Officer for the city. You are correct that there was an appraisal reduction that was granted by the city of San Marcos that asked us to go back and review those appraisals. Appraisal district will still keep in mind this year. They're not going to automatically go back up, but you need to contact them and let them know that you still have not done your repairs so that they know that, because they're going to assume that you have done some of those repairs and your house will be worth more. But if you contact them, you can work through that process with them. David Valle at the Hayes County Appraisal District is one of the gentlemen to talk to. But they are still considering that. And usually those appraisals come out, you probably should have already received some type of notice. I know the final notices of what they're going to estimate your value at is in May. So there's a chance to actually go through and actually appeal that. And so there is a process. Yes, ma'am?
If you have moved,
into another place, they will be sending that out to your new address.
You should contact them, and they can mail notices to your new address. They can. Again, because we have people that have rental houses, and they live in Houston, they get their property tax bill in Houston, not here.
It was quite complicated, I have to tell you that, and all we had to do, in considering that I have a son in a wheelchair, my husband has Parkinson's, and it's just difficult for us to get around. And considering our age and everything, I mean, it has been a tremendous effort to do the simplest thing. And I just don't know, I'm worried, what you said about we live elsewhere. We don't live in that house, we can't live in that house. In fact, when we opened the door, we saw what we saw. Considering our age, we were gonna close the door and walk away because we could do nothing. We had volunteers, tremendous amount of volunteers, that came in and cleaned all that stuff out, including everything we owned. But we would have had to walk away. So we don't live there. When we came into the city to talk about what can be done, you want to rebuild or you want to buy out? We said, we want to buy out. And I said, well, when will you know about this grant? He said, November. We never heard anything. By the way, we got no information in the mail. Everything was stuck in the door of the old house. Stuck in the door. If you'd had a wind, rain, or whatever, we wouldn't have gotten any of that information, ever. My son happened to go by and pick up a new address. Now, we had to get another house. We had to provide for our son. We had to get him for something. And I never thought I would be homeless at 80. Homeless. We had to get something. And so we had another house. And we could not qualify for any of this. No. BCRG or nothing, because we were in another house. Right. So that house sits there, nothing's done to it, and it's gonna sit there until the city says we're gonna buy you out or whatever, because we can't do anything with it.
And the city should have a list of all those homes that have already applied for the buyout and have already talked, and instead of reapplying each year to do their taxes, it should be on a list. It shouldn't be something that you have to redo and redo and redo and redo. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
I don't think that the city has a list.
They should, they've talked to the city.
What I'm saying is, I don't think we don't have an application process for buyout. It's not something we do.
Well, who did they talk to? Who did you talk to on
The city engineer.
Yeah, we don't have a buyout process yet, so.
No, I know, he told us that, we're applying for the grant, but he said, we'll know something by November. Well, no, we didn't hear anything. And so I said, well, what do we do meanwhile? He said, nothing. Now, how many people have lost their home totally can do nothing? How many can do that? I mean, we had to make a decision to live somewhere, and we had to use our retirement to do that. So we are in another house, but we've used our retirement to do that. So will that have any effect that we live somewhere else?
We definitely need to have the address of record on file.
You do have that.
Okay, if we've got that, then you'll be receiving mail at that location.
Well, see, we didn't receive any mail. Everything was stuck in the door, and if my son had run by and picked it up from the door, we wouldn't have known about any of this.
You do a forwarding address with your post office as well?
Yes, we did all of that. We did all of that.
I would ask to validate with utility billing that we have your correct address. If it was submitted incorrectly, if we made a mistake, we definitely want to make that correct mistake. We definitely want to make sure the mail is going to the right place. But if we don't know the address to send it to, obviously.
After this, give me both your addresses, and I'll make sure it's in the utility billing system the correct way. On Monday, and I'll give you a call and let you know. And then one thing I did want to mention about finances is that the city council has done some major investments in our drainage area. We have added before the last couple of years, we only had 2 full-time staff for the whole city. We've made major investments. We've got a full-time four-man crew that works at gradage now, with some major equipment that they've actually just purchased. So you're gonna start seeing some of these areas, on more of a routine cycle of getting cleaned up. We've actually added about $200,000 in annual tree trimming costs across the city as well. And so those are some of the areas that we've really been focusing on and ramping up. We're finishing a drainage master plan that'll identify projects within the city and other areas and funding options of impact fees of how we put more of this burden on new development in certain areas and make sure that they're paying their fair share, that we're able to do regional drainage projects that fix these things as well. So there is a lot of stuff that the city council has invested in that's gonna hopefully, environmental engineering person that they hire this year that's reviewing all these plans and making sure that those types of aspects are all taken into consideration. So I did want to make sure that the city knew that there's been a lot of movement towards funding this stuff properly.
And how can we find out about where that's being done and how it's being done?
You can always put in requests through our website, and we have an app that we can get you where you can put in things like that if you want to go out and take a look at, that you can download. You can make phone calls to the city. I can give you my card afterward and send you a link to how you can register to make those requests on the city's website, and we can get you more information. And that crew's pretty responsive, so if we know about it, usually we're out there pretty quickly to take care of it.
Blanco, 605 Conway. I just wanted to let you know that I have called and tried to reach out to the appraisal district to reappraise the house for this year because my husband and I still aren't back home after those floods. And they don't know what to do with the reappraisal value of the house. They said we haven't heard anything from the city yet, so there might be some miscommunication going on.
Let me get your address and name of yours and somebody else wants to do, and I'll check up on those for you.
My name is Sally Gonzalez, and I live at 1006 Barber Drive. I've been there for almost 30 years. It was going to be a starter home, and we've been there almost 30 years. We have seen some floods in the past. To give you a little history, as an elementary school girl, my family was rescued off our home where we lived on Reynolds Street, right where the swimming pool is.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a big flood. And when I see all of this development near the rivers, I shake my head and give it a slap in the face to all of the people who lived in that neighborhood on North Rev, on Reynolds Street, people who lived over by the city park, and were told they had to leave their homes because it was not safe for them to live there anymore. It was prone to flooding, okay? So now I see all of these buildings going up right near the river, and I think, what about those families who were told it's not safe for you to live by the river, we have to buy out? Okay, people did that. And now we sit here and watch these major developments right by the river going up. There is a dismal amount of voter apathy in San Marcos. We can't get people out to vote. And I go out and vote every chance I get. Okay, I can't make a lot of meetings in the evenings because I work out of town, but when I can, I do. And you know, I'm always encouraging people to get out and vote. Your vote makes a difference. Well, you know what? All I have to do is look down the street, and my vote did not make a difference because that was overwhelmingly voted against by the citizens of San Marcos. It still happened. I cannot tell you anything. It makes a difference. Anybody who lives in the neighborhood knows that it does not. In '98, our home was one of the handful that was flooded. We were lucky, and we actually qualified for a program for the city of San Marcos to raise our home. At the time, I thought, this is crazy, we're never going to flood. We've lived here for 20 years, we're never going to flood. But we did it. My husband wanted to do it, we did it. And I'm glad to hear there will be some gap coverage because we had to pay for a lot of the renovations out of our own pocket, okay? So the city covered some of the raising, but we still had to cover a lot of it through our own pocket. I mean, there's still a few little areas where, you know what, oh yeah, we gotta do that, we'll cover there, whatever. But the raising up is not the only answer. Also, the buyouts, again, you know, that doesn't always solve the problem. Our neighbors across the street were in their homes since 1963. They had never been flooded. In '98, they had a couple of inches in the carport. That was it. Okay, they came back. They had a wonderful church group. They were able to remodel their home after the Memorial Day flood. They moved back in. Then October came.
Oh, yes.
They could not survive. The gentleman who rides a little scooter is disabled. They said, this is it. We can't do it. So they had to go out and move. like this lady said, at their age, they had to go, and now they're paying money for housing. Their house was paid off. You know, our other neighbors in Florida says the same thing. They had to move out of their house. And they just barely moved back in. You know, Mrs. Flores had to have major surgery during that time. They lost everything. Our neighbors right next to us, you know, we were lucky. I mean, in retrospect, we were lucky that we raised our home and we did not have any direct damage into our main home, but our yard was a mess. My husband's workshop was a mess. So there's not, I don't know. This is mostly an emotional tangent, so I'm sorry if it doesn't sound organized, but I just wanted to give my thoughts. And I'm sorry, but I do take offense that we can't displace 1,000 people and make them homeless. When I'm looking at all of my neighbors, I take a walk almost every day, and it's been like walking through a war zone, you know, in my neighborhood.
And just to be clear, we can, but I think that's a decision that would be made with a lot of forethought. Your questions. I never got to responding to yours with regard to buyout, lifting, and we did talk about the buyouts and lifting and the challenges associated with those, although they are still things that are being considered. We're also going to look at engineered solutions with the objective being to reduce and the situations where water gets into the neighborhood from the Blanco River. Can't stop the rain falling directly on you, that's still going to be a challenge. But that's not the primary situation where the neighborhood floods. At least in recent years, the primary situation has been water entering the neighborhood from the Blanco.
That's right, because when they converge is when we have such bad flood.
But the convergence will back up to San Marcos, but the water's coming into Fairlawn and into Blanco Gardens from far north of the convergence. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Okay.
No, I just missed you.
My name is Jeffrey. I have lived most of my life on Conway Drive and was flooded twice. Yeah, but I just wanted to say we're all human beings and we all make mistakes, but I trust you guys to make the right decision. But I just wanted to say that honestly there are a bunch of angry people, and I just want to mention that angry people do things sometimes. It's just, you're the only guy standing up there. There's a bunch of people working in the city. And you guys are standing up there, and sometimes angry people like to take stuff out. So I just want, things, I don't know, just be careful, because angry people do stupid things.
Understood. In every interaction with the community, we understand that everyone has concerns, and they're all approaching items from different perspectives. We all have different perspectives. Our objective as we interact is to treat every person in every situation with dignity and respect, understanding that we might not be able to give you the answer that you want. As evidenced here, we want to hear what you have to say. We're definitely not going to avoid a conversation with input that we would wish was different. That doesn't do anybody any good. So we definitely want to hear what you have to say. One question was earlier, how do we let people know? Regardless of the question, if you have any question, if you send an email to floodrecovery@sanmarcostx.gov, we're going to forward that to the correct people to be able to help you with that question. If you put contact information in there, we will reach out to you to help. And we need more information, we'll reach out to you to get that additional information. But the best site, especially for flood-related questions, is floodrecovery@sanmarcostx.gov. No, I'm sorry.
Good morning. I think it's still morning. My name is April16, and I reside in the Blanco Gardens area. I was not there at the meeting on Tuesday. I had another commitment. I'm here. I imagine there were a lot of comments made regarding people's experiences, just like this morning. And I appreciate Mr. Baker. All the comments that he made. In hindsight, I think maybe a lot of us would maybe think back maybe 40, 50 years from here, whether we wanted to reside, make it home in the areas where we did. We can't turn the clock back. But like the individual over there said, you know, we want to stay in our neighborhoods. We've lived there. And given the fact that we have experienced and gone through what we have, we cannot undo what has happened. But I'd like to think that our elected officials will do and initiate things that need to be done in our neighborhood. When they're talking about cleanup, when they're talking about whether maybe some people might want to be bought out, or whether some people want to remain there and continue with their roots there, all their experiences, whether good or bad, are there. But I'd like you all to think about the fact that decisions were made in the past that impacted our neighborhood. Decisions will continue to be made that impact individuals in this area. I can think back to maybe 3 or 4 years ago when several of us approached the city, the PNZ, regarding the apartment complex. Was the apartment complex completely responsible for the flooding? We don't control rain, like you mentioned earlier. But I think there are some things that can be considered to ensure the continued safety of it and the integrity of it. And I don't think the decisions that were made some time back went along those lines. And so in the future, I think it's important that the people that we elect think about those questions or those issues that come up, because this community is made up of individuals that have lived here for many, many, many years. And it seems to several of us that we are not really considered when decisions are being made, even though we might not have a degree in engineering, whatever, but common sense tells individuals, some of us, even with no education, that if you put a structure somewhere and there's a river there, there's going to be an impact somewhere or the other. And I think this is what we tried to tell several of our elected officials and administrators many years back. And so in regards to that, think about those decisions, because we do depend on the integrity of the elected officials to really make cognizant decisions about what's good for our community. That's right. Not just some members of our community, that's right, but all members of our community. That's right. Really, I'm not here seeking applause. I really am not. I think I'm sensing and I'm saying what a lot of us have thought for for some years now about what happened with this. I empathize with a lot of them. We were fortunate, my husband and my family and I were fortunate. We had some insurance. It didn't cover everything, but it's still very disheartening for me when I go down the street. And this is the other comment that I was gonna have. In your survey right here, 33% have no insurance. Just of the ones sitting here. I do not know what the percentage was at the other meeting, but 20% have not at home, and 28% have not even submitted an apartment application. You know, that's, to me, I know that the city primary focus is not to be a social service agency, but hopefully maybe you will think about really addressing those neighborhoods that were impacted and find out, because there's a lot of homes that are empty. And I think Mr. Gonzalez brought up the fact that there are people on a fixed income. They cannot fix their homes. And maybe that's why they're not back, and they want to go back. And maybe it's good time from the BRT, 3T, that maybe some kind of an inventory needs to be done with some of these individuals and find out whether they intend to come back and why is it that they're not back. And a lot of them is going to be, we can't afford it. We have no insurance. We can't afford to come back. But we need to give the opportunity to these individuals to find out. A lot of people, you know, some people might be sitting there and say, well, they can go and get information. No, they cannot. You know, my mother always used to make the comment that she was ignorant, and I always used to tell her, you're not ignorant. It's just that you don't have the information to make that decision.
And that's sometimes what happens, that not everybody has a computer, not everybody has internet, not everybody has a smartphone, and some of us, those individuals that Mr. Gonzalez made reference to, need to be told or need to knock on their door and say, how can we help? Where are you? Can we connect you with an organization that can help you out? I think more than anything, that's important because there's a lot of those people that want to stay in those neighborhoods. They don't want to leave any place else. And even if they wanted to, a lot of those are old people and their roots are there. So think about those. For future reference, think about those decisions that are being made. But hopefully you all will be active and maybe seek out people that are not in their homes, because there's several homes. And it's not just because that they have a sign for sale in front of it. It's just because of the fact that they don't have the money to do so. And it's, like I said, it's very disheartening. I hear Ms. Angel over here, and it's very hard. And I think for all of us that have gone through this, I know I cried when I went into my house and I saw the devastation that was there. I can just imagine the ones that got more water than that, not only once, but twice. So think about those, think about maybe going and knocking and looking at the homes that are empty, and they're empty for a reason. It's because some people cannot afford it, and they want to come back. And let's see what we can do to try to help them get back in there, to connect them with an organization that hopefully will help them. Thank you so much.
Well said, very fair. I know that we've got resources from a case management standpoint through VR3T. We also have, and I should point out, we've got representatives here from St. Bernard's Parish who have been able to rebuild houses. Y'all can wave your hands. Oh, back there, I thought y'all were this. Okay, SVP on the shirt. I know we're going to start losing people here pretty quick, so I want us to wrap it up here in just a moment. We'll do a couple more questions. But I want to remind you of the Special Olympics event that's going on outside, and just be careful as you drive away and look out for participants. I don't want anybody to have an encounter or accident with one of our Special Olympics participants.
Okay, I'm John Newby. I live at 2102 River Road here in San Marcos. And first off, I want to say this. You guys got, the engineers and the city of San Marcos got a job on their hands, because it's, San Marcos is going to continue to grow. So you're going to have drainage issues and so on and so forth. One of the things I'd like to see you look into is getting the water away from the city into the rivers and so on and so forth, so that they don't flood. Okay. Don't know what issues you've been looking into. I didn't know about the bypass thing. I didn't know about that, the channel. But also I was wondering, there's a lot of gravel bars on the Blanco River, and if you just eliminated that, you'd give a lot more space for water. Okay. And you guys, you're going to have more water coming off the city. More concrete is poured, more asphalt it is, and the more you're going to get. I'm sorry, I have a little bit of asthma, so I lose my voice a little bit. But I know you got a tremendous job. It's not easy, but that's one thing I think you ought to really look into first before we do allow the extra building. Is let's figure out a way to handle the water, get it into the streams and get it down there so it doesn't flood some of the other also. Thank you.
Clifford Robertson from Conway. I'm not gonna rehash a lot of things that's already been said, but on a couple of notes, and this is definitely one of the big things, and I think if anything is in your presentation, if you did get it, that there's a lot of information that they're trying to share with us as citizens that we get to hold them accountable for, right? Because everything you said and done today, and the one that we went to the other night, is they're trying to develop an action plan. I have a question about that. So it says here that we have 30 to 60 days at the beginning, okay, for this grant. When does that start? What's the 30 to 60 days?
That's to create the action plan.
Okay.
And that's going to take place, that clock starts ticking when the Federal Register is released,
okay.
Notifying officially of the award and also putting out any additional guidelines beyond the standard CDBG-DR guidelines.
Okay, all right. For everybody to understand, again, because I have to try to be a calm person. Ginger is, Ginger, that's her home. The makeup that we've shared today, and you missed it the other day, but I brought to the fact that of the actual people that live in the homes, right? There's approximately 50% of us that are retirees.
Yes.
She's still working, thank God. I just looked out, I got a young. However, the thing that we all have in common here is the fact that there's a marker that says, "Welcome to San Marcos, the beginning of the hill country," which means, guess what? We're at the bottom. Right? Yes. We're at the bottom. And it rolls downhill. Yeah. I'm originally from Midland, Texas. I drive out there because it takes me the same amount of time to fly with the connections of the flights. But I took a route that I had never taken before out of here. And it took me, but guess what I saw? The Blanco River. Wembley, Blanco River. Johnson City, Blanco River. And I'm like saying, okay, listen, and that studied in my mind, water's going downhill, okay? So you guys, we have a job, and I say we, because the citizens, they're asking us, what do you want to see first? What really matters? I appreciate your remarks, but unfortunately, I have a young lady that, as a single parent, she got that house. I sold my house, I retired. But my love is right here, okay? To take a vow, to get us out of that, it's kind of hard. I'm trying to make it a second home. She's not even hearing that either. But the thing is that this timeline, this is what I'm concerned about. When is that 90 days going to start, and when are we going to be, how are we going to be notified? I got the other pages. I made a lot of notes. The second one, is the third one, you're already getting the public input, but that's not it. You can't stop. This is not it. Okay? This is not it. I want everybody to understand that, because we have to have that conversation, is to understand that this is not just going on. I want to know how we can get back into and follow up. Because to build an action plan that you got a government agencies that's going to release $25 million, better have a strong strategy. And the strategy is only supported by an action plan. Right. Okay. So because other than that, I was telling them before when I came to the meeting, I worked for UPS for 35 years. That company is still thriving. It's only two brothers that started that company, right? But how did they get there? They had strategies. Once they thought they met that, it's a process. The thing about processes is there's no time. You can go back and revisit it. So this is not going to be a quick fix. I ask you to be patient, but along the way, use that the other page up there that had all the places that where you have the communications, right? To get that, don't go by hearsay. Because hearsay won't do nothing but get you pissed, right? I'm telling the truth. I looked for my neighbors out of the 1,200. I'm a block captain. That was a good thing that came out of the flood, unfortunately. But really, I got to know the neighborhood a little more. We started developing block captains, how to communicate, met the city council, the management team. But the thing is that all the things that we say and do, we've seen part of it. But these people could guide us, because I thought we were at wit's end. They said, listen, take the time out. Even though I was upset, as Ginger thought, I thought the second floor town hall was going to be turned out. Let's go to the Blanco River or BR3, and they were able to help us out.
But see, that's good for you, they couldn't help us because we live in another house.
Right. But along the way, what you started today, right, and I heard you, is that there's other people now that heard, and you will be able to find some way. I don't think they're gonna leave you hanging. Okay? So that's what I'm here to say, and I just wanted to say thanks. But the first City Hall meeting, I will never forget. It was there, and this gentleman spoke with FEMA. And it started kind of reminding me of you, sir, because he says 10 years ago, I was a victim. And he says, I'm saying a victim because 10 years ago, and I'm still, my life has changed. And he was with FEMA, and he was talking about the flood in New Orleans. So this is your life will never be the same. I'll say a prayer for us now. Because resilience and what we're going through is not going to happen overnight. Because she'll tell you right off the bat, once I saw the devastation, I'm from West Texas. Tornadoes, dust storms, yeah, we're used to kind of that stuff, but water, and the power of it, I know. But she won't leave, and I'm here with her because that's not gonna happen. Okay? So that's all. But the communication sheet, take it, use it to your advantage. When you guys gonna give a notification of hey, the clock is ticking?
As soon as we receive the Federal Register, we'll put out a press release on that. I don't know if we'll send out a letter to everyone right away. The Federal Register coming out will happen in the next 30 to 60 days. That'll start the 90-day clock to create an action plan. The action plan, 90 days is not enough time to have solutions in the plan. It's going to be outlining how we're going to identify solutions, timelines for it.
Remind them.
Okay.
The information they need.
And so that, but that'll be the 90-day period to create the action plan, or the action plan, which will then guide the process from that point forward. What we're going to do to identify solutions, evaluate solutions, and then implement solutions.
Okay. And last but not least, I know I'm done. Okay. Do with the text, because I have the text, Lord. But have you thought about this? Okay. For the one that we were just talking about, our town, you know, do we have like, hey, this is only a test, just check to make sure, and is there somewhere you're going to get some feedback for we watch that communication? But other than that, I read it on the cable TV, you know, it's talking about this is for the Dallas area. Well, hey, I'm down south. Just think about that. Other than that, you're throwing something out there, you don't have any feedback for it. All right? Thanks.
To give it to BR3T, he mentioned a couple of questions that they need to touch on.
I just wanted to speak to a couple of things and how BR3T works in the community. Disaster recovery is very confusing. Who here feels like they're being bopped around a bureaucracy or a system, whether it be insurance, partnering with FEMA, anything like that? Show of hands. It's a good number of folks. We have a case management team with the BR3T, and they're rock solid. They do disaster case management. If it may be that we can't rebuild your home, we can help you navigate that system of insurance. If we can't provide you household goods, for example, we can work with you through FEMA. We have folks who are trained to navigate that system for you. So I do encourage all of you, if you experience damage from the flood, to register with us. It doesn't matter where you're from, as long as you're within the 4 counties that we serve. It doesn't matter whether you're a renter or an owner, you can register with us. If you have needs following the floods, you can register with us and we'll do our best to help you. We don't have all the answers, we don't have any guarantees on what we can provide, but we have people who are there to listen to you, to try and pair you up with those voluntary agencies to get you those services and navigate that system. I'm still learning it. It's very confusing, very frustrating. It's very slow, and it's slow for a reason. But the BR3T is going to be around for the long years of recovery. In New Orleans, they're still rebuilding homes 10 years later. Who knows how long this process will take, but we'll be there through the duration to help you. And we rely on the city. We have great partnerships with the city. Public input doesn't end here. It will continue through the process of recovery, and we are a great nexus for that. So if you communicate with our folks, sometimes it may feel like we're not in communication with you. We're essentially a bureaucracy ourselves that was formed very quickly, and we're doing our best to try and reach out to y'all. But please call us, email us, reach out, talk to our case managers over there at the DR3T table. We can get you set up in case management and try and help you meet those needs. Another thing that I noticed wasn't really touched on in this meeting is the need for emotional and spiritual support. How many of you are at your wits' end with all of this? Lots of frustration. We have a great organization that we're partnered with and is represented here today. Teresa, can you raise your hand? She's with an excellent organization, Texans Recovering Together. They are crisis counselors. They have been on the ground for many months and will be on the ground for about another year at least. They're there, they're meeting with survivors, they're listening to their needs, they're trying to help them through that. There's someone you can talk to, someone who maybe they don't have any answers for you, but they're there to give you a hug. And they work very closely with us to try and pair you with the services that we can provide. And so I do encourage you to talk to everyone we've got at that table, and we can help you through this recovery process, which is very long and very difficult indeed, but we'll get there.
All right, at this point, I'd like to wrap up the microphone Q&A session and go ahead and set it up so we can break out into the smaller groups where we can have some more detailed conversations with you. Also leverage the input of all the staff and subject matter experts that are here that can help you at least understand the process or answer questions you may have or just listen to your comments. I also want to encourage everyone, if you don't have email or if you don't have a cell phone or something like that, if you would write down your contact information on an idea card and just request a contact. We would like to do that as well. If you have some ideas that we didn't talk about, or like I said, you didn't want to share them up in front of everybody, please fill them out on the idea card, put them in the idea box. We are very appreciative of y'all's time. We appreciate you taking the effort to come here and share your thoughts with us, to get information. And as Mr. Robinson said, the best way to have the good information is to just talk to us. And we want to help answer and dispel rumor, but also make sure you've got accurate information. Finally, we hope to see you at the upcoming City Council meeting on April 25th. We're going to have a flood recovery workshop at that meeting as well. This meeting is going to be available to view on demand on our website at sanmarcostx.gov/townhall. This meeting right here, if you want to go back and review it, it'll be available on the website as well. We're going to stick around to answer any of your questions. Also feel free to visit our staff or VR3T or any of the other tables in the room. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate the respectful way that differing thoughts and ideas were shared. Thank you for your time. Thanks.